So what's the story about this bailout? I mean, £59 million is a lot of money.
I do hope that they don't raid the pension fund. We've got about £300 million there.
The leader of the council didn't do anything, having been warned him beforehand that this is happening.
He was dismissed quickly and he resigned quickly in order to avoid any kind of investigations.
So what difference can your voice make to what we just talked about?
Hang on a minute, we can actually win in London and we can win in Barnet.
Forget about opinion polls and that. This is a real test.
Regardless of the trade union numbers, we'll be surpassing Labour and their membership.
It's about the demand, and how do you reduce the demand? By making the changes at a national level in order to filter down to the local levels.
By removing those companies, we could save millions with Inside Barnet. Millions.
What's going to be your policy with regards to that, Sury?
So at that time I stood up and I said this is against the law.
He left the Conservatives because he spoke out and said, look, this policy isn't right, it's going to cost us millions and millions of pounds.
You've got the one side saying, look at you, and they're going, but you've been in control for 14 years. And they fall flat on their backside.
Where are we with Elon Musk? Is he going to donate to the party? And if he does donate, how much are we expecting? Why should people vote for you on 13th of February?
We are reform. Barnet needs reform. And as a Reform UK, we hope we can bring about the change the residents desperately need.
Welcome to today's episode of UDecide Podcast, where we discuss the upcoming Burnt Oak local by-election scheduled for Thursday, 13th of February. Following the resignation of Labour councillor Amar Naqvi, this by-election is receiving significant attention, and today I'm delighted to have with us Sury Khatri, the Reform UK candidate standing in this upcoming local election, Mark Shooter, the first Reform councillor in London, and Hamish Haddow, who stood as a candidate for the Chipping Barnet's parliamentary elections.
Hello.
Welcome, gentlemen. So my first question is, why are we having this by-election in Burnt Oak? What's happened there?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you, Potkin, for having me on, inviting me here. This by-election is caused by a resignation of Labour councillor. He allegedly wrote on his CV, or was on the members' register of interests, that he was a UCL medical professor. So I don't know whether he would have been called in for an operation last minute. It might have been a problem.
This seems to be a Labour trait about lying about their CVs, no? I mean, this is exactly what Rachel Reeves did as well.
Well, a lot of people, when they're trying to get on the ladder in jobs, if they haven't got anything particularly interesting to write about themselves, sometimes they say, well, you know, I like football, or I had, you know, lots of crazy things they can write, but you know, this is obviously a different level. But
what was his motive to say that he was a professor with UCL?
We don't know. It was something that would happen very quickly, and he was dismissed quickly, and he resigned quickly in order to avoid any kind of investigations into what happened. So we don't really know. But one thing is for sure that he's going to affect him probably for the rest of his life. It's a tough thing to happen, and something on his record like that. For maybe it was an innocent mistake. We just don't know.
Apart from being dishonest about his credentials, what's been his track record in the council?
Well, he was the head of the finance in the cabinet. He was a very senior member of the Labour administration. So we don't know how much he's responsible for with the £59 million bailout that Labour have gone for. But I think that what seems strange, the manner of his sacking or leaving the council, that it's almost like they needed someone to be made a scapegoat for the complete mismanagement by the Labour administration.
So what's the story about this bailout? I mean, £59 million is a lot of money for a council.
Well,
this is specifically for the Burnt Oak Council or for the Barnet Council?
It's for the whole of
Barnet Council.
It needs £59 million for their shortfall. There's a number of reasons. I don't think that the Conservatives in 2022, when they lost power, left the finances in a particularly good state. There has been a cost of living crisis, there's been inflation, but at the same time, the Labour budget was full of completely crazy assumptions on how they were going to save money, and this has obviously caught up with them.
This £59 million bailout. So what if the government doesn't pay?
Well, Barnet have...
Are they going to raise the council taxes?
I mean, let's look at, for example, the pension fund, which I was the chairman of for 10 years. and they're sitting on a very, very large surplus. I do hope that they don't raid the pension fund. We've got about £300 million there that we've built up from when I took over, a £150 million deficit. So there are various resources. I mean, I think what they'll try and do is build more intense developments in order to try and raise taxes through Section 106s, SIL payments, any way they can. They'll build on any small piece of land they can in order to find these extra revenues. And don't forget, they get council tax as well if they build these developments. So I think that's what they've traditionally done, councils, many of these councils, is they've had these central government budget cuts, and they're just going to keep doing more of the same. There are many services that are going to have to be cut, and I've also heard, some of these are vital services that really protect the most vulnerable in the community, and I've heard the crazy things going on where they're charging thousands of pounds for someone that has the necklace with the emergency button, when they didn't have to pay before. So a lot of these services, the most vulnerable in our society, are not going to be able to afford anymore. They're also going to put council tax up significantly. I mean, we're already going up 5%. I heard one Lib Dem council put the council tax up 25%. Which,
oh my God!
So I don't even think that's legal. But
it's almost as much as the mortgage nowadays, isn't it? The council tax. But coming to you, Sury, you're the one who's standing up as the candidate for Reform UK in the Burns Oak by-election. Just tell us a little bit about your background.
My background is that I was in the civil service till 2006. I retired after 3.5 decades of civil service. I was working in export credit guarantee department, so basically supporting exporters by providing them support, insurance, loan guarantees, etc. And then after I retired, then I was looking for voluntary work, so I started getting involved with charities. And as part of that process, I got involved with a councillor who then encouraged me, let's say, to join the Conservative Party. At that time, I was helping them with running the office. They didn't have many people, so I was running the back office for them. I was basically doing a sticking plaster job because there was so much neglect before that. And then as it happens, the 2010 came. They were looking for candidates for the council elections. And I have lived in Mill Hill for 48 years. So natural, they said, would you like to stand for Mill Hill? I had not given a second thought to this. I said, okay. I heard of paper candidates. Maybe that's what they're thinking of me. I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I was fortunately elected in 2010. And then I got re-elected into 4 years later. So I did represented Mill Hill for 8 years.
The Conservative Party?
The Conservative Party, yes. Sorry, under the Conservative Party banner, yes, 8 years.
But
and
you're with Reform now, so what made you defect?
Well, I was, what had happened with the Conservatives thing left a very sour taste in my mouth. You think there should be honor, but they don't have any integrity. The people who were involved, it's only a handful of people. You can count them on one hand, the number of people who happen to have the power. And even the leader of the council didn't do anything, having been warned him beforehand that this is happening. I've been a governor for 4 years, 4 schools in Mill Hill since for the last 14 years. And now I sort of step back, and I'm still a trustee of a local charity. I'm on sort of a committee of the Mill Hill Residents Association. So with my experience, I get asked for advice, and I'm quite willingly give them. And then the opportunity came for reform. Mark spoke to me saying, I was disillusioned with Labour. I toyed with the idea with Labour, but I got disillusioned with them with what happened after the election, and they're getting worse. So I literally felt I didn't sit there very comfortably with them either. And then I wasn't thinking anything till Mark spoke to me and said, would you come join Reform? So I said, I had a chat with Hamish, we had a report, and I came on board, and not expecting to stand for any election, because we were sort of, in our mind, we were planning for 26. Not
and then suddenly this by-election came up.
And this came up suddenly, and I presume the thought was, since hopefully I'm the better candidate.
Now, this ward is been Labour for how many years?
Since 1965, the creation of the ward, it's been Labour ever since.
Yeah.
In fact, if we win as Reform, UK, we will be making history. So, and we believe we can.
Yeah.
So it's a tough campaign. So what's your most pressing issue as a candidate for Reform? What is it that you're concentrating most on if you're elected?
What's happening currently in Burntjoch is you've got a litter problem, which is very bad. You have a new development coming up, which many people are objecting to. I don't know if you are aware where Burntjoch Station is. It's a very small place. There's a car. They're taking over the side, and they're going to squash in about 3 quarts into a pine pot. Is the best way to describe the development. They're going to decimate the car park, which is very handy for people. So again, they're going to reduce the car park spaces. So it's going to make it that much more harder. Imagine the construction work, how long the disruption will take place. It's not a very area where you can easily isolate it. You're going to create so much havoc there for people.
But you're going to be one member in a council. How many people in the ward, in the council ward?
3.
3.
And 63 in the council.
This is a vital election for Reform in Barnet and Burntjoch, because when a lot of comments people make are, we don't want to split the right-wing vote, or we don't think they're real about their policies, etc., etc. So if we put in a very good show in Burntjoch, if we win or if we come second, a close second to taking it, then it actually will wake people up and say, hang on a minute, if I vote Reform, it means my vote counts. And we've only got a year to go until the main elections where all 63 councillors are standing. So these are like test cases. It will also alert Reform Central Office, the main party, that hang on a minute, we can actually win in London and we can win in Barnet. So we're going to get more resources in order to fight for the campaign. And we'll get more councillors wanting to stand, more potential councillors, because they'll see that actually it can be done.
And you touched a good point, actually, which I was going to come to, because even though this is a local election, it really has a national significance, isn't it? Because it's the first test, real test. I mean, forget about opinion polls and that. This is a real test to see how dissatisfied people are with Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, and how well they have the confidence to vote Reform and know that their vote is not going to be wasted. So quite significant. I mean, I can bring you into this now, Hamish, because you're more on a sort of like national level. How's the Reform Party doing at the moment in general?
On a national level, yesterday we went through 190,000 members. Considering that just about 2 months ago, we were sitting at about just below, we were 89,000.
So at the moment, have you got the most members out of all the mainstream parties?
We from what we understand, the Tories at their last membership leadership election that they had, they claimed to have 130,000 people.
So you well in excess of that.
Well, we believe that figure is more likely to be low and below 90,000 now.
Because so many people have
I think
given up.
The one thing that happens is that when the Tories have an election, a lot of people jump on to try to get their voice heard. When the election happens, they all leave again, and so their membership has dwindled right down again, which came out in January.
This is quite important, isn't it? Because in the last general election, I distinctly remember talking to a lot of people that were completely dissatisfied with the Tories. They didn't want a Labour government, but they were scared that if they vote for Reform, their vote is going to be wasted.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, do you have a plan?
Changed. That's absolutely changed.
Yeah.
That's it's now that we are definitely the opposition. Whilst we don't have the voice, and the Uni Party out there at the moment are definitely trying to silence us. We are now more popular than both Labour and Conservative together. Just going back, the only reason why Labour have the highest number of membership is, because when you are a member of a trade union, you're automatically made a member of the Labour Party. And half the people there probably don't even want to vote for them, but they're forced by proxy to immediately be a member of them. So unfortunately, and also, if you would just look at it for what it is, we are blowing the lights out. Our membership, 190. I mean, I would expect us within the next month. It's taken us, only a couple of months for us to gain that much. I think within the next few weeks, we're looking at blowing through 200,000 members, and we're taking it to another level. It will be soon. I think that even with the trade unions, I think within a year's time, we'll probably be banging on the same numbers. Regardless of the trade union numbers, we'll be surpassing Labour and their membership, which will make us more popular than anybody else.
Mentioned Reform Party to someone, immediately they will sort of like visualise the national issues that you're identified with, like Brexit, like immigration.
Sure.
But on a local level election, how would you describe the party? So how would you be different
that's the challenge.
To Labour and Conservative or the Lib Dems?
So we have to, obviously the root of the problem, I mean, if you take an area like Burnt Oak, which has a high amount of social housing, and there are obviously a high level percentage of immigrants in those social housing. And then the question is, are these people able to get appointments at the doctors? Do they have the ability to, are things that are meant to be done by the council being done properly or not? So that's the challenge. The fact that we are at the moment focused on national issues, trying to now, what I'm doing with Hamish is trying to engage with grassroots, trying to build a grassroots structure where we can actually stand for, I'll give you an example, the Burnt Oak development that Sury just mentioned. They're building on Watling car park. They're going to destroy local businesses in the area. No one will be able to park and use the shops, etc. It's on a floodplain. It's in a conservation area, and they're building this huge tower. These are the sort of issues where actually reforms, general policy is totally different. The national policy on planning, that they don't want this overcrowding. They don't want these rabbit hutch flats being built. They want something sensible and sustainable. So obviously there's a huge emphasis on protecting the green belt, but it's not just about focusing on the supply of these flats because of this supposed housing crisis. It's about the demand, and how do you reduce the demand? By making the changes at a national level in order to filter down to the local levels. This is why we're seeing £59 million deficit in the council, because the local council can't afford to do all these extra services that they weren't required of previously.
One of the issues that is important for me when I vote in the local elections is crime, safety, antisocial behaviour. I mean, as a father of young children, you would expect me to be very concerned about this. And from what I hear, there's a very major concern about crime and antisocial behaviour in Burnt Oak. What's going to be your policy with regards to that, Sury?
Well, the policy would be that, like I did in Mill Hill, I will be working with I think it comes under the Edgware Safer Neighbourhood team. So this is how I built the contacts with Mill Hill Ward, a representative from the Met Police, and then we discussed whatever issues that were happening and kept on pushing to do something. So I would be doing exactly with them as I did with the Mill Hill Safer Neighbourhood.
That doesn't really cut with someone like me, because I actually think a major part of the problem isn't just that no one's talking to the police and that. I think a major part of the problem is that the police is incapable of solving the crime, going after crime, willing to tackle the crime, and a lot of that comes to the vetting. The vetting standards for the police have really dropped, and until that gets sorted out, we're not going to have an effective police force.
No, I accept that, but
is going to be able to tackle crime.
No, I accept that, but I don't know if you know the history of Barnet. Before Barnet had local presence all
Yeah,
over
there
the
was a
place.
police station,
and then
which they
then
closed down. They sold.
reorganized. So
Yeah.
everything is now funneled into Colindale. So if you got Barnet, which is right at the top end of the borough, to get somebody to sort of go and deal with situation, you're working from Colindale. It's just not impracticable to do that. Even with Mill Hill, we had a safer neighborhood team locally. That was, I can't remember if it's still there or not, but I understood it's moved from there as well. They come trying to bring it back. So because I was sitting on the panel with the safer neighborhood team, and that panel included the Met, all the major people from the of residents, businesses, etc., synagogue representatives, and we sat and discussed what the issues are in Mill Hill and how we're going to take it forward and how we're going to resolve. So that's my first-hand experience, and hope I can do the same. Give me the standing to do the same thing if I'm elected in Bontoc. So I have had that experience, how to work and how to try to get things resolved. And my only, as you say, yes, it's a nice thing, but the first step is the Mill Hill Safer Unit Team. You can't go beyond them. You just have to work with them to try and get the best out for the borough.
I suppose the other thing is that we as Reform in Barnet, we have Mark at the moment, who recently has just become the first London Reform councillor, and hopefully Sury will be the next. We're also talking to some other councillors who are in possibly defection.
Quite a few.
Yeah. So before, as I'm sure you appreciate, is right now Mark's voice. He is 1 in 63.
Yeah.
When we start building it up and we start getting much more of a presence, we can start holding these people to account. And when we do hold them to account, then we can actually start making some proper gains on how to fight crime within Barnet. And I've always been, and certainly as you know at the last election, one of the biggest things I always talked about was reopening that police station, getting police back out on the streets and actually stop a lot of the nonsense that's going on.
What country can you think of where they close down the police stations? I've never heard of that.
Ridiculous.
When I talk about this to people outside this country, they just laugh at you.
But you know what?
Our police stations are open 24/7.
You also have to look at the record of Mayor Sadiq Khan as well, who recently received an eye for.
Terrible.
And I think crime in London in general is at all-time highs. So something needs to change. I believe the reform policies are the only way forward in order to reduce crime. It's just a package as a whole to try and make London more cohesive, the people happier, and obviously bringing more police onto the streets.
So would I be right in saying that even if Sury is elected to the council, he's not going to be able to make that much difference to the crime until we have a proper mayor who actually cares about crime and safety?
No, that's not quite correct, actually. The point being is I am the only councillor representing reform. I cannot form legally a reform group. If Sury gets elected, then we can form a group of 2, a leader and a deputy leader of Reform Barnet, and then we can actually start putting in motions to full council and putting in more succinct questions, asking more pointed questions and trying to influence policy. So there is a point for Sury to get elected, but it's a building block for next year where potentially we could actually take control and power in the council. If we can do that, then we can bring in some real policies that matter. We're in the process of shaping up our local promises. Obviously, a lot of them are very sort of tied into what's happening in each ward. But there are some general ideas that we have that we want to try and figure out. And a lot of that is to do also, we're having to talk to a lot of people. We're taking surveys. We're trying to work out best strategy because it's very, very different from the national picture. I moved to Reform because I love all of Reform's national policies. Absolutely brilliant. They really resonate with me.
And they resonate with most of the people that have voted for Tories in the last 14 years. It's just that they've given them a mandate, but they've never delivered it.
When I joined the Conservatives 15 years ago, this is what I thought I was joining. But actually, I tell a lie. the policies were nowhere near as good as the reform policies now. And I urge people to study them. And then I also urge anyone listening in Barnet to actually get in touch with us, because there's opportunity here. I've been a councillor for 16 years. I've loved every minute of it. Yes, it's a challenge, but you can really make a difference. And not only that, you make so many friends, you learn so many skills, you get to speak publicly. I mean, there may be mayor, I don't know how, the youngest mayor in Barnet. But...
And last Saturday, Hamish, you had a good turnout with the party activists coming, leafleting the ward and that. What was your feedback from that?
So we organised an action weekend. So
were you fasting at the time, by the way, or because
I
I just heard that you've been on an 8-day fast?
9 days, actually.
9 days fast.
Yeah,
so you've had nothing. You haven't eaten anything. Only water
until Thursday. Thank you.
It's absolutely amazing. But I heard you had a lot of cakes this morning.
he finished off my whole cake.
So that was like you were fasting last Saturday, but you were doing the campaign.
I mean, the good thing about it was we had people from all ages, from all backgrounds, all coming to support Sury. They all came to his house. That was our main setup. We had people doing just a little, we were sending people out in groups. We had some people who, obviously, who might have been restricted in years, who decided to do slightly smaller routes. But you had some of the people. We had some young people who are bouncing through quite a few different walking routes that we'd all prepared, and the spirit and everybody is energized with reform. It's amazing. It's really brilliant.
But what was the feedback from the constituents?
General feeling is people are sick of the Tories, they're sick of Labour, and Lib Dems and the Greens are not featuring here. In fact, there was more talk of the Reclaim, Reclaim the EU party than there was about the Lib Dems. And so there's a definite, much better feeling that reform, we could take this.
We've got an excellent candidate, Sury Khatri.
Yeah.
He's 8 years experience. He's got years and years of business experience. He's also done so much for the community. He knows the whole role of being a councillor, and he knows how to be effective. He left the Conservatives because he spoke out and said, look, this policy isn't right. It's going to cost us millions and millions of pounds. And you know something? 5 years later, he's right.
So the £59 million bailout, you sort of like pre-warned them about what was happening.
Well, not the figure, but what it was leading up to.
You knew that this was going to be a huge waste.
The same thing happened when I first got elected. That time the Conservatives were also in a cabinet system. And for environment, we had Mr. Brian Coleman. And he was pursuing this policy of parking. And in group where we just have Conservative Council, we meet before the main council meeting. So at that time I stood up and I said, this is against the law. And he said, just ignored me, and he just ran career along. Down the line, this guy took out a legal case against the council. They lost and had to pay so much cost.
How much do you remember?
They paid back 2 million, 3 million back to the residents who were charged for parking, which they shouldn't have been
So
charged.
that really came out of the pocket of the council taxpayers?
That came out of the council when you were told this is against the law, but he decided to ignore that.
Right.
And he just went on saying, this is it, I'm going to do this, I don't care what other people think.
Just to wrap up what we've been talking about, I mean, in one sentence, Sury, why should people vote for you on 13th of February?
Well, as you heard what we've been talking just now, people are not happy. We were not happy with Conservatives, so they turned to Labour. Now we believe the feeling is that they are more unhappy with Labour as well. They want an alternative. We are reform. Barnet needs reform, and as a Reform UK, we hope we can bring about the change the residents desperately need. That's my message.
Absolutely.
And Mark, as a Tory councillor who's defected to Reform, what would you say to encourage more Tory and Labour members to defect to Reform?
Well, I was pretty unhappy in the Conservative Party for a number of years. recently, and I felt that things were definitely not going the right way, and it's very regimented. So you have to listen to a few people that decide on all policy. And if you step out like Sury did and express your views, then you just get pushed back into a box, and then you're just kind of isolated. So with reform, it's a breath of fresh air. You've got ideas, you've got people that are just coming out wanting, it's like a mission people are on, okay? They want to change the country. It's definitely, you can't put the country or the council back into the people that ran it into the ground. And Labour have obviously got off to a very, very bad start. My colleagues, I like most of my colleagues on the council. I think everyone does it for the right reason. Everyone wants to help people. Everyone wants to try for the betterment of whatever interests them. And I just think that, yes, I know it's a risk moving over, but you've got to sometimes go with your gut, and you've got to say, I've got to do it for the right reason. You know, these aren't the right policies for Barnet in the country, and reform are.
In a way, you've got to tell the traditional parties that, look, you can't carry on going the same way you've been going for the last God knows how many years, and there is an alternative now, just to wake them up.
I think we've gone beyond the protest vote now.
Right.
It's now, because I think that's what the last election sort of was building to. Were we the protest vote? Are we, it's gone beyond that now. I think we have got people joining us from Labour, people joining us from the Conservatives who have had enough of the lies that have been going on for years. And when you look at what's going on at PMQs, you've got the one side saying, look at you, and they're going, but you've been in control for 14 years. And They fall flat on their backside every single time they come up with an argument. When they should be held to account. But the problem is they can't be holding them to account when their own track record has been so dismal. So therefore, everybody is looking at reform. And Nigel is by far the best leader that we have. He is rated the top leader in this country to be Prime Minister. Not only, he's not just the best leader in the country, but to be Prime Minister in the next 4 years.
It makes me laugh when I hear these Tory MPs or officials or councillors, whatever, when they sort of like start criticising law and order and things like that. Or illegal immigration. 14 years you've been in that position. Exactly. So why didn't you stop it? How can we trust you now?
Well, they can't be trusted.
I moved before we were actually this popular. I think we were on 20% or 21% when I moved. We're now on 27%. It was before Elon Musk and all this stuff. I just felt these are the right policies, and you're going to get a natural progression towards reform just on the policies alone. So it's just a question of now building up these grassroots. We've got to encourage people to join and actually put their names forward to stand. There's so much opportunity. There's so many different wards. We've got 63 council positions that we have to fill. And we need people that are devoted to the cause.
It's exciting times. It really is exciting.
Where are we with Elon Musk? Is he going to donate to the party? I mean, can he do it legally, because he's not a UK citizen?
He doesn't need to be. Look, his father and grandmother are British, right. And so therefore he can quite happily apply for British citizenship. But he does own Tesla, and Tesla has a British outlets in the factory here, and etc. And therefore, he can donate through those outlets if he feels like it. That's completely legal. But also, let's just point something out.
Is he going to?
Well, in my mind, I think he's already donated to the party. I think that this was an organised PR stunt. And I think that Elon and Nigel have done one of the greatest PR things that we could possibly do for reform. The amount of people talking about Elon Musk and Nigel and the spat and the left are all hoping that it's fallen out. These two guys are friends. They've just been across at the inauguration of Trump, and they were sitting there having a chat. They're all friends. They're absolutely no problem. And they're laughing at the media who are hoping that they're going to fall out. And the big thing about it is that work it out. We've gone from 90,000 to 190,000, and that's all part of Elon being involved in this. And Nigel stood by his guns the whole way through it, and people turned around and said, even my wife said, that shows a man of integrity. And that's great.
And if he does donate, how much are we expecting?
I think
And-
we're
and if
looking
it does
about 80 million.
donate,
But I
what
think
difference will it make?
It makes a lot of difference.
Massive.
For the grassroots, for sure, because, I mean, it's very different from when Conservatives, everything was spoon-fed to us. So we had an agent, they'd produce all the literature, they'd literally call us up, here you go, here's the stuff to deliver, here's the canvassing cards to door knock. We haven't got any of that here, right? It's really starting from scratch. I haven't even got a rosette yet. Please, can you get me one as soon as possible?
no problem.
I had to
you
get
got
the
a
sticker.
T-shirt today.
I'm sure if Elon Musk donates, we can afford another
I'm
rosette.
hoping Elon. I need a rosette, please. so really, if we're talking about, because you've got to look at Conservatives and Labour as these quasi-military operations, you know, to actually host and stand this number of councillors all across the country. They've got proper infrastructure, they've got a central team, and then they've got their regional teams, and they're doing everything because it's hard enough.
And they've got the donations from the unions, haven't they?
Yeah, they have.
Which,
They have,
which
yeah.
I mean, we know that Dan Tomlinson, for example, who I ran against at the last election, his entire funding of around £5,000 all came from the unions. Absolutely down to the brass penny. All came from the unions. We didn't have that support.
And was that with the consent of the members of the union, or was it just what the union leaders
The
decided?
unions just gave it. They went around giving it to all of them.
But did they have a ballot amongst the union members?
No. It was all handed out. It was all given to them. Yeah.
Well, look, it looks like we've got interesting times ahead. We've only got a few days for the by-election, and we're going to watch this space very closely. I think it's going to be, whatever the outcome is, there's going to be some interesting lessons to learn. So good luck to all of you. And if you live in Burnt Oak, mark the date, Thursday, 13th of February. Make sure you vote. Polling stations will be open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And don't forget to have a valid photo ID with you. Thanks a lot, gents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.